This podcast may contain explicit language. One's too many and 100's not enough. The Lost Weekend is next. Welcome to the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast, the show that uses a unique rating style to redefine what the greatest movies are. I'm Tom Duncan.
And I'm Dana Duncan.
Tonight, for our 288th episode, we discuss the Best Picture winner of 1945, The Lost Weekend, celebrating its 80th anniversary, written and directed by Billy Wilder, with Charles Brackett, who is also the producer on this film. Cinematography by John F. Seitz. Music by Miklos Rocha. Editing by Don Harrison. Starring Ray Milland as Don Birnam, Jane Wyman as Helen St. James, Phillip Terry as Wick Birnam, Howard Da Silva as Nat, Doris Dowling as Gloria, Frank Phelan as Bim Nolan, Mary Young as Mrs. Deveridge, and Anita Bolster as Mrs. Foley. Background for the movie. The Lost Weekend was released on November 29th, 1945, again making this its 80th anniversary. On an estimated budget of $1.25 million, the film is said to have grossed roughly $11 million to possibly finish as the number 4 film of 1945. But again, until basically the early 70s, film box score tracking or box office tracking was not nearly at the level that it is today. Critics were also effusive in their praise of the film, Wilder and Milland at the time, and the film would be nominated for 7 Oscars, including cinematography for John F. Seitz, original score for Rosa, and film editing for Don Harrison, while winning for Best Picture, Director for Billy Wilder, Actor for Ray Milland, and Adapted Screenplay for Wilder and Charles Brackett. In 2011, The Lost Weekend was selected for preservation in the National Film Registry. It currently holds a 97% among critics on Rotten Tomatoes, and it is a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd, but this is, oddly enough, another one of those that does not have a Metacritic score. But we cannot do this by ourselves, so we bring in our second most featured guest in the history of the show. That's right, he's back again after a long hiatus. Our 16-time guest, making his 17th appearance, a 5-time club member, the host and creator of the Best Picture cast, the Irish Iron Man from Long Island. Please welcome back, Kieran B.
Well, gentlemen, it feels so good to be back. So good to hear that intro music again and the soothing sounds of the clap of the studio audience here at Gmote. I am honored to be back here. You've quoted my number at 17. I guess there's other little extracurricular episodes in there. This is my 15th movie episode, which for us over at Best Picture Cast signifies a entire season. So it is a great number for me to celebrate here today. And I wanted to start off just by thanking you two for welcoming into your little podcasting family here. It truly does mean a lot to be included as a part of this as many times as you have, allowing me to select some of my favorite movies, some movies that I are deep tracks that I care a lot about, and some wacky movies too. It's been a total blast. I in my time prepping for this has been my biggest gap since I first came on back in 2023. So I took a little time to revisit each of my episodes here in a kind of a trip through time of Kieran B and Gmote. So it's been a fun time catching up. And, you know, since I've last been here, I'm a dad now. So a lot has shifted here in life, but thank you very much. I'm just very happy to be here. And thanks again, guys, to include me in on this.
Well, we always enjoy having you, and we know how difficult it is sometimes to wrestle you to the ground for any of these Best Picture winners, but this is, I think, the 3rd or 4th time you've been on with us for a Best Picture winner and consecutive movies. because the last one you were on for was Gladiator, I believe, in April.
Yes. Yeah. Way back in April for Gladiator. I did the revisit of the best years of their lives. So this is the second time I'm doing a Best Picture winner in like a true startup Gmote episode here, and happy to do it. I wouldn't do this if it wasn't a movie I cared about and a venue in which I cared about guesting. So
I spend more time with you, I think, any more than most of my family.
That's probably true.
Although Peterson's catching up, I'm expecting him to be at your Thanksgiving table this week. No,
not quite that level, and while he's getting closer per se, and he's definitely, I think, in the top 3 at this point, you will be the number 1 most frequent guest by the end of next season. By my count. You will have surpassed my mother, who is not on much next season. And I think you have like 4 or 5 different ones that you're on.
Well, you have some time to twist her arm and get her in the mix. Maybe that Lost in Translation revisit episode, I know how much she cares about that movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd have an easier time getting her on the Everything Everywhere All at Once pod. She tends to join you in your criticism of the film.
Well, we'll have to cross that road at Best Picture cast soon enough. We're running out of other options of Best Picture winners, so I'll have to do my justice with that soon.
Yeah, I think by my count you have 10 left.
Something I should know off the top of my head, of course, but me and math and dealing with my my new dad brain is a little tough to just kind of do these things. So I might need help with the math here tonight. But it looks like we're sitting at 85. So it's going to be a little more than 10 come March. I think, would we get to 98 in March? 98 winners?
That sounds about right.
I think Anora was the 97th winner.
And again, it depends on whether you count Sunrise as an equal winner.
So far we haven't, but we may just to fill out the season put that in the mix too. So then that would be 99. So yes, about 12 or 13. So like short of a season left here.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be quite a turnaround for you guys if you do whatever wins Best Picture this year, like before the end of next year.
Yeah. It'll eventually get to the point once we've caught up that we'll be doing a Best Picture winning episode shortly after the movie's won. You'll probably give it each year. We'll probably give it a couple months just to let the dust settle a little bit, because I don't love talking about the movie like right in its precipice, particularly right after a win. There's always a lot of buzz surrounding these not just the Best Pictures, but the actors and all that. And there's, all sorts of buzz, good or bad, whether you call it toxicity, call it fandom, whatever it is. You never quite know what you want. You don't want to get caught up in the contemporary.
Yeah, there's always the immediate backlash to anything that wins these days because we've got to knock it off the pedestal immediately. Yeah. You can't just revel in its greatness for a little while. No, we got to take the shine off the apple. But regardless, I think this is one where all 3 of us are mutually aligned on our reverence for this film. And especially because I think we probably all came about to this film in roughly the same way. It's one of these where it's on the list, but you know next to nothing about it. You may know who Ray Milland is, especially if you're a Dial M for Murder fan. And you probably know Billy Wilder. But outside of that, like the subject material and the rest of it, so when you pop it on, it's this grand surprise of a film that I think more people should be promoting of the film. And this is part of my, I guess, soapbox for the evening. More people should see this movie. I don't think it's nearly as well received or seen or known as some of the other Billy Wilder classics, but I frankly think it should be up there with the Double Indemnities and The Apartment and some of the other ones that we see much more often on some of these higher up lists.
Undoubtedly. I'm totally with you. I think this is a masterclass in filmmaking. I can make a case for it being Billy Wilder's best. I know he has 4 others on the AFI Top 100 list, and this is not included in that list. And there's 4 wonderful movies, and not movies I'm besmirching by any means, but I think there is some real next level filmmaking going on with this Lost Weekend.
And not to tip our hands early, but he has the same 4 on the CLP list, including one we'll be discussing tonight. But unfortunately, The Lost Weekend did not make the CLP list either.
Did either of you have it on yours?
That is a good question. I don't recall immediately offhand, so give me 1 second to pull up my list here.
Yeah, I had it on mine. Joey had it on his. I don't believe Grant Z included it on his. So only got 2 of the BPC guys chiming in.
I had Double Indemnity at 33, and I think that's the only Wilder I had on my entire list. Dad here had Indemnity at 16, and he had Sunset at 24, and 22, Some Like It Hot, yeah, and The Apartment at 41. So he had all 4 of the ones that have been.
I think this was there was about 10 of them that I kept going up and down between 45 and 50. And I think it ended up missing the cut because I wanted to include a couple of comedies.
Yeah, I definitely gave some love to a couple of movies that I think are maybe a little bit underseen by especially our American film community. Your Name was one that came up, and Harakiri came up for me. But definitely, I think I had to scrape off a few at the back end where you're cutting some like clear favorites or some obvious ones. And I know I've heard from people that they didn't nominate something or they kept it off of their list because they figured everybody else would do that. Well,
Yeah, it happens when you have to narrow it down to 50. It's very difficult. And my little parameter I set for myself, which is completely arbitrary and ridiculous, and I'll be the first to tell you that, is that I eliminated movies we haven't covered yet at Best Picture Cast. So that took out some heavy hitters in Schindler's List, Casablanca, and The Apartment, all 3 of which would have been on my list in another world. But it just helped me, like you said, Tom, kind of include some other things that I thought might need some visibility in a community like this, just based on what people. And I wasn't concerned about Casablanca or Schindler's List missing the list, nor was I really about The Apartment, which, as you said, did make it too.
And I'll let you know in advance a little bit that both of those did make the list. They just haven't been revealed yet.
Which I'm sure is not a big spoiler to anyone who's familiar with these sorts of aggregates.
I think only the placement of what films finished where is going to be the surprise. It's not the films themselves that I think will be in any way surprising. But that being said, we're all here to promote the hell out of this movie. And I think it's because in many ways, especially in our professional lives, so Dad and I deal with a lot of people that are victims of addiction because we're dealing with disabled individuals. And that's one way in which it has impacted us on a very personal level. But likewise, this is a movie about alcoholism, and he's often in a bar. You have the opposing perspective of being one of the people that may be regularly serving people in this capacity. So from that standpoint, I find this movie to be significantly ahead of its time for how accurate it still feels for being 80 years old. Why is this so relevant to alcoholism and addiction, period?
First of all, it absolutely is not just ahead of its time, but pretty wildly accurate in a lot of areas that haven't changed over the years, as you've said. And one thing I look at is just the unfortunate enduring strength of addiction, and how no matter how many people shuffle through this world, it still strikes with a blunt force that doesn't create much different side effect to it and an outcome to it. It's a vicious cycle, as we'll discuss, and something that hit people in the 1920s as it hit them in the 40s, 60s, 80s, 90s and 2020s today. And while our outfits change and our vehicles change, our tendencies tend to stay the same.
I think we're actually much more of an addicted society now. And whether you want to say that's some of the influence of the technology or social media or how we've developed with our brains on phones at the ready drop of a hat. In fact, I think the oft question for that has been, when's the last time you stood in line anywhere and didn't immediately pull out your phone? Like, to see how far we've come in even the 20 years since the smartphone really became a big thing in American life. But that being said, there's so much here that I think was under-discussed at the time, but that we're super hyper-aware of now. The compromises that one makes with oneself. Oh, it's only going to be one. It's going to be my last cigarette. It's going to be my last hit of whatever it is. And then I'm done. And that'll be enough. And no amount of last ones will ever be enough. You will always seemingly want more. The only part about this movie that I find to be a little quaint and outdated is just how neatly the film seems to wrap up. And that's about the only way in which I think this is still rooted a little bit in the 40s, where you could just kind of like, all right, my willpower alone is going to get me over my addiction.
Well, now that's great that you brought that up. And you do have, as you always do every week, some remaining questions. And my little pulpit today is going to largely be about the ending and how I believe it is, as I wrote in Letterboxd from my 5-star review of it this time around, I believe this is one of the most misunderstood endings in the history of cinema, and how Billy Wilder laid it out, how he was kind of forced to lay it out considering the Hays Code and the time and just getting the movie greenlit, and the little nuggets and clues he puts out to where the movie is headed beyond the end title card. So that's something we'll tackle at the end when we do the remaining questions and that it come up and where the characters end up. But I do this time around particularly picked up a couple of other little nuggets in the film that highlight Wilder's thesis of where the movie ends. And I've read the book too, so I have some inner knowledge on that. Not that it tells you anything. It's they're two different mediums, and Wilder went his own way with the script. So, but just another kind of supporting evidence as to where I think this thing ends up.
I think the ending is really not an ending. It's the beginning of the end, because there's likely a lot more that was taking place after that.
Dad, you and I are some of the very few people who have seen, or at least have a personal relationship with someone who is able to quit alcohol cold turkey. Like, my criticism of the film doesn't take into account there are some people who are able to do it through sheer willpower. So I guess, what is your somewhat relationship, roundabout manner, with this on a personal level and then overall?
October 1968, my dad went into state hospital to dry out. He was an alcoholic, and my mother gave the ultimatum. It was either quit drinking or we're divorcing. And so before my 5th birthday, he was going to be in for 60 or 90 days. So he went in. And when he got out, he never drank again. He did not drink from October of 1968 until he passed in May of 2007. And said he, at some point in time after about the first 4 or 5 years, lost all interest or desire to drink. But that's a rarity. Most of the time, it's individuals who they'll stop and they can do it, and then life gets in their way and things happen and they take a turn and they fall off the wagon. Sometimes they're able to get right back on the wagon and maintain it again. Some don't. But I think each individual is different, and there's a lot of variables that exist in these stories. So that's mine. I've also been aware of alcoholism and drug addiction that's been rampant through my family. You know, my dad's brothers both were alcoholics. Neither of them ever were able to maintain sobriety for any length of time. Both ended up addicted to nicotine and ended up both dying of lung cancer. You know, it just depends. Sometimes it's getting the strength. I think the fact that my mother never drank and really was abhorrent to alcohol may have been a benefit to him, because he was, for how to put this, my parents had a very bizarre relationship. It was they loved each other and at times hated each other, and they would annoy the hell out of each other. And but yet I think my dad always wanted to try to do whatever it took to make my mother happy. And so to that extent, maybe that was the driving force. I don't know. So addictions do not always manifest in certain behaviors. They can come out in other areas.
So I think my relationship to this film, this was a pandemic watch, I'm pretty sure. So I've only started my relationship with it within the last 5-6-ish years. And I believe the first time that I watched it, I think I've now done it 3 or 4 times. I know I did it for my discussion group out of Madison once, but I believe, Dad, that you watched it with me the first time and that you have subsequently only watched it with me since. Is that right? Or did you see it before me?
I think I watched it with you, but I think I've watched it one time without you.
Okay. But like, was that prior to watching it for the first time with me? Or so did you have a different first time?
I think the first time I watched it was with you. And I think one other time I watched it with your mother and grandmother.
Okay, that would make sense. Kieran, what's your relationship outside of your show? You had probably seen it prior to doing an episode on it, yes?
Absolutely. I coming out of college, when I decided I wanted to take my pursuit of seeing every Best Picture winner seriously, because it's something I had kicked around since grade school. But out of college, got some time. Let's make the list, print it out for real. Let's get the checklist out, start checking things off. This was one I picked very early, few reasons. All right. Little top heavy with what I've seen with what's closer to today. So we got to go back in time a bit. Let's pick something from the 40s. Right off the bat, runtime, 140, beautiful. The premise, just the pitch line. Man has debaucherous weekends, and all right, well, that sounds like that might be something interesting. That might be something entertaining. You know, it's not exactly Hamlet or, A Man for All Seasons. I know you love Man for All Seasons, no shade on that, but the pitch line on that is not the same for a 22-year-old. So let's do it. And I really consider this my gateway to classic cinema. Not to hard liquor, but to old classic cinema, where I said, whoa, all right, I can spend 100 minutes with a film from the 1940s and not just be intellectually stimulated, be shook, but be fully entertained. And that's what Billy Wilder does with this heavy, dour material. He entertains you with wonderful characters, with wonderful dialogue, and real things to say. So it was an early favorite. We covered this at Best Picture Guest pretty much exactly 5 years ago. It was November 2020 that we covered this at the beginning of our second season. So much though that the inflation on the $10 that he gets from the maid has changed by $40 to when we last covered it. So when I looked it up yesterday, that $10 would have been about $180 to today's money. And on the episode, which I listened to today, just to refresh what I said about the movie, back then we quoted it as $140. So in the 5 years, the inflation's gone up by $40 there.
Yeah, I guess that's not entirely surprising if you've basically been living the last 4 years and had to purchase anything.
Yeah.
But it's still, I mean, both of us kind of marvel at this in different ways. The fact that we've almost been doing this for 6 full years, and you are almost on the exact same timeline. It just...
Yeah, I think we started within months of each other. You guys do every week. We do every other week. That would be the biggest difference.
Right. But even so, to spend essentially a sixth of your life doing this, I mean, that's crazy.
It is, but not to go down the beaten path with it anymore, but it's a sixth of my life strengthening friendships with close friends, getting closer with them, becoming close friends with people who were closer to acquaintances back then, rejuvenating old friendships, and then meeting new people all over, not just the country, but the world. It's honestly been some of the best years of my life, not to quote another Best Picture winner. But it's something I would never trade.
So I think the answer to this question may be simpler because it may be like 1 or 2 words, but what is the movie about? I just simply said addiction.
I mean, that is if you had to do it in a word, it's addiction. But to me, if I'm going to sum it up, I would say it's the cycle and the circle of addiction. We see circles all over this film, and it's about the effect it has not just on the center of the circle, but all that surrounds the circle as well. The family, the friends, the people closest to the person enduring the addiction, and even the people as far away as the maid who was looking to go shopping with her $10 pay and has to wait till Monday now because someone found it in a cookie jar. It affects everyone around, and this movie really lays it out for you.
I often wondered, because my dad was so enthralled by so many of the movies that were released during this time frame. This is not one my dad ever talked about, and he had to have seen it. Maybe it was just too personal to him, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Some of the things that he never would talk about rehab with me, but he did talk about them with my mother, who shared it with me. Some of what he had to go through and the DTs and such. So that's the only thing I can think of is he just didn't want to talk about this because it just was too relevant.
Yeah. Well, on that note, do you have our plot summary ready for us?
I do. The Lost Weekend follows Don Birnam, Ray Milland, a struggling writer whose life is slipping away because of alcoholism. The film takes place over one long, destructive weekend in New York City, as Don tries and repeatedly fails to break free from his addiction. His brother Wick, Phillip Terry, wants to help Don get sober, but Don keeps finding ways to drink again. The one steady supporter in his life is his girlfriend, Helen St. James, played by Jane Wyman, who refuses to give up on him even as his behavior becomes more desperate. As Don wanders the city searching for alcohol, the film shows his downward spiral with unflinching honesty, highlighted by Milland's powerful Oscar-winning performance. The story builds toward a moment of truth where Don has to decide whether he'll keep drinking or finally confront what's destroying him.
Well, thank you, Dad. Circling back to kind of where we started from the beginning, all three of us are big supporters of this film. Why is this not as well received, seen, heard of, publicly known as it probably should be, or at least all three of us believe so? I have some theories, but I'm willing to hear others first.
I think we'd probably start with the subject material. And it gets you on two ends. All right. You have the people who are too close to it that don't really want to be reliving this in movie form. And you have the people who don't have an active association or understanding for the drinking culture. So that just doesn't resonate with them. So you have both ends of those. Might be why it hasn't synced into the Gen Pop the way that his he being Billy Wilder's other famous films have. You have the chic noir in Double Indemnity. You have the quirky comedy in Some Like It Hot. You have the Hollywood, big Hollywood piece in Sunset Boulevard. And then The Apartment, his second Best Picture, Best Director win, which kind of has a little bit of everything for everyone. So it looking at it from the backdrop, you could see maybe how this one slipped through the cracks. It's a damn shame because it's a hell of a movie.
I think too, we've had such a strong feeling that psychology has only been relevant over the last few decades, that it was outdated before. And so I think there's a natural tendency to think of this film as being outdated. That there's no way that it got the psychology of alcoholism correct in 1945. And I think that is a bias that weighs against a lot of people picking up the film. I mean, what we should be doing is it almost needs to be where there's articles in Psychology Today, PhD theses written as to the relevancy of alcoholism is portrayed in The Lost Weekend, that's being done now, that would help to resurrect this film.
Not to steal a RDB common refrain, but I think the title of this one is a little too plain. It works, like it's dead on the nose of what it's supposed to represent about the entirety of the movie, but by the same token, it seems so generic that it could be about anything.
Maybe. The Apartment, though,
That's fair.
Certainly Double Indemnity and Some Like It Hot have catchy names to them, Sunset Boulevard as well. I kind of like The Lost Weekend as a title. Sounds a little like, ooh, what was lost? How was it lost? Where was it lost? I don't know, but it could be.
Well, I think the only way that people pick this up, and frankly, the only way that three of us picked it up, is because it is a Best Picture winner. So I guess this is another one of these where if it was only nominated and it didn't actually win, do enough people see it? Because I think there are films like that I've missed out on that are nominated, are perfectly good films. And for whatever reason in the cycle, it was 20th Century Fox's year to win Best Picture that year, or whatever, in this rotation where Hollywood was awarding itself in the 30s and 40s. And some of these probably aren't as well known, that I wonder how many of these other films that are still very relevant or underappreciated are out there like this. Because I remember seeing this for the first time and saying, holy shit.
Yeah, it still would have the Wilder tag on it. So, but would probably then, you look at an Ace in a Hole or a Stalag 17, so it's tough to say because the movie does hold up. So there is that, but I tend to agree. I think it might get lost in the shuffle if it was just a nominee.
Well, by the same token though, and this is one where Dad and I both watched it only because we had it on for prep. How many people have seen The Major and the Minor?
Don't even know what it is.
Exactly. That's his first full studio feature with Ray Milland in the lead and Ginger Rogers. Isn't that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Big stars.
Like, you have to seek it out to see it. I think it's available on Internet Film Archive, so you can watch it. It's a short film. It's aged horribly.
Oh, it's a short film. Though,
yeah,
too. Okay, so that,
but it's one of those like quaint 1940s films that you can watch very easily, and it's charming, even though it's incredibly outdated.
Yeah, if you can find it, right? So that, like, Billy Wilder's someone I'd love to go along with his filmography and watch all those things, but I think finding those early movies is just going to be such a scavenger hunt. It's like, will that be worth it?
But when you get to some of his older ones, by the time he hits the 50s. Like, you could probably find almost everything that he made available.
Yes.
I mean, with the lone exception, like Stalag 17 was a little difficult to find, but, other than that. So, let's go to some Did You Know? I think I have some good ones for you guys here. Did you know? In 1944, Billy Wilder was traveling from New York to Hollywood by train and stopped off at the Chicago train station to buy some reading material for the journey, as one does. One of these books was The Lost Weekend. By the time he'd reached Hollywood, Wilder knew this would make the ideal basis for his next film. Billy Wilder felt the need to tackle the subject of alcoholism as a direct result of his experience of working with Raymond Chandler on Double Indemnity. Wilder made the film as a way of explaining the condition to Chandler himself.
Showing the book up for the viewers at home.
Yes, if you're watching on YouTube, you can definitely see that. So, did you know? Billy Wilder claimed the liquor industry offered Paramount Pictures $5 million not to release the film. He also suggested that he would have accepted had they offered it to him personally.
Yeah.
Gotta like those kickbacks. Did you know? Ray Milland checked himself into Bellevue Hospital with the help of resident doctors in order to experience the horror of a drunk ward. Milland was given an iron bed and locked inside the booze tank. That night, a new arrival came into the ward screaming, an entrance that immersed the whole ward in hysteria. With the ward falling into bedlam, a robed and barefoot Milland escaped while the door was ajar and slipped out onto 34th Street, where he tried to hail a cab. When a suspicious cop spotted him, Milland tried to explain, but the cop didn't believe him, especially after he noticed the Bellevue insignia on his robe. The actor was dragged to Bellevue, where it took him a full 30 minutes to explain his situation to the authorities before he was finally released.
Unintentional method acting.
Did you know? It was only in later years that Billy Wilder discovered that the title of Charles R. Jackson's novel is a typo. It was supposed to have been called, any guesses?
Last weekend?
Yep, The Last Weekend.
Better title is The Lost Weekend, but maybe
I actually do prefer it, yeah. Did you know? The first film featuring a theremin on the soundtrack, a musical instrument that produces a strange wailing sound that later became familiar to 1950 science fiction film audiences. Or Star Trek. We mentioned it on last week's episode of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Miklos Rosa used it in the composing of the score for the nightmare sequences. And finally, did you know? For this film, Billy Wilder became the first person to win Academy Awards for Best Director and Best Screenplay for the same film, and created a stable industry for basically all modern directors. So with that looks like a good spot for our first break. We will be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, next week for our 289th episode, we welcome back Clarissa Beckstead of the I've Seen That One podcast to revisit the horror classic Psycho from 1960, which celebrated its 65th anniversary earlier this year. Directed by Alfred Hitchcock, written by Joseph Stefano, cinematography by John L. Russell, music by Bernard Herrmann, editing by George Tomasini, starring Anthony Perkins, Vera Miles, Martin Balsam, and Janet Leigh. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you.
That's REELGOOD.
All right, coming back here from the break. Kieran, what is up with you and where can people find you?
All right. Well, you can find me at Best Picture Cast, wherever you get your podcasts. That's Best Picture Cast, just how it sounds. But what I wanted to highlight today is my back catalog here at Gmote. That's what I'm promoting here today, because this is episode 15. Today is a monumental time for me. I have, as you can see, the shirt here. And I think we'll do this as a bit of a press conference, because I have the polo, which has come in the mail, the Gmote polo. So if we'll do the honorary, here we go.
Oh, he's going to try it on. So we got to vamp here for a second, Dad, while he does
great radio here. But
yeah,
for our YouTube listeners.
For anyone not on the YouTube, he is literally putting it on as we speak. Oh, the humanity.
There we go. How do I look?
Looks good.
Oh, it looks great. Does it fit okay?
Of course. It fits great. It fits awesome. But I got to put the hat on, too. Hold on.
Okay. Oh,
sorry. Wrong hat. Whoops. Sorry about that.
No, that was the right.
Is it the wrong hat, though? Is it the wrong hat?
That was my Brewers hat. Yeah, here we go. There's the hat, the polo. We got the full uniform. It's official now. 15 films. please go back and check out any of the 14 times before now that I've been on the podcast. Actually, on Twitter, I put a little thread together of those movies, so you can go to Best Picture Cast Twitter and check that out. I think if it's okay, can I read them in ranking order?
This is your opportunity to shine, so take the time however you'd like.
Okay, so on Twitter, if you go to Best Picture Cast, it's one of my recent posts. I put a thread of the links to all of the episodes. You can check them out. I put them in sequence order. But we're going to go from 14 to 1 in how they rated on the Rubric here. We start with number 14, by far, as an entirety, the funniest episode would be Saw. Coming in at a 33.24. Didn't fare so well. I did pick up my funniest 3 moments, and this did rank in that. Guest Jalen Salah had probably one of the funniest podcasting quotes I've ever heard. And it was, quote, "I've met a lot of guys like this Jigsaw guy, and let me tell you something, they all suck." I just shrugged my shoulders and said, "Oh, that's just amazing." Okay, so number 13 was Bad Day at Black Rock. Don't let the ranking fool you. It's a great movie. Might not be super Rubric friendly in its deep track nature, 38.15. Our last sub 40 movie here would be Billy Wilder's Stalag 17, ties in today, 38.83. A Dana deep track favorite and a favorite of mine as well. A William Holden Best Actor win. At 11 would be Gran Torino, a 40.06, just survives the dreaded sub 40 tag. Now the top 10 in reverse. My debut episode, Cat on the Hot Tin Roof, 41.53. And looking at all the scores and going through, say I might have been a little excited as a newcomer. If I were to go back, I might have lowered some of those. But number 9 was Fistful of Dollars, the first movie in the Dollars trilogy. That was a 43.73. In the 8 zone, Up in the Air with Peterson W. Hill in the mix. I will admit, after some time has passed, while I will never deny my love for the film and for George Clooney, the 9.13 classic is slightly regrettable. Slightly regrettable. That means that at least probably 2 of us had it at a 10, and I think it was me and Peterson. And, if Corns wants to revisit that, I will tip my cap to that. But 9.13 classicness. Okay, well, yeah, what can you do?
It should get a little fewer lower marks because of Shailene Woodley's relationship with A-Rod. But
what?
She loses classic points for that.
But she wasn't in that movie.
Yes, she was.
Shailene Woodley was in Up in the Air?
She was in the other Clooney film.
The Descendants?
The Descendants.
Descendants, yeah, that's right.
Sorry. My
this
bad.
is back-to-back weeks with a casting mistake here.
Yep.
Descendants classic rating is 9.5, by the way. Love me some Clooney. Love me some Payne.
I should inform you, though. You used his actual name, and on this program, I have promised him he only goes by Voldemort now.
Oh, George Clooney? Or
no?
Sorry, Scooby.
Yes,
Scooby.
Mr. Scooby-Doo villain.
Well,
he who shall not be named.
Edit around.
Or Mr. So not appearing in this episode.
I'll throw my hands in the air in his honor. Up in the air, right? In that same spot. There we go. Number 7, Lost in Translation, 46.45. A bit of a revelation episode for you, Tom. That was my second ever appearance. Love that film. 6 is The Grapes of Wrath, my second most recent appearance, 47.83. Getting to the top 5, Shane, 47.96. Yeah, love it. Most recent appearance, Gladiator at number 4, 48.99. Then the top 3, the revisit of the best years of our lives. The final 3 are all revisits, by the way, 54.6. Revisit of 12 Angry Men with Sarah Shea at a 55. And number 1 is The Shawshank Redemption, 55.81. I do have to shout out in our Gladiator episode, Rob Collins' impression of Oliver Reed doing the giraffes line. I laughed so hard listening to it this week, I dropped my laundry basket. Please go back and just listen for that in the quotes section. And then I have to shout out Clint's nipples in our review of the Rookie, which you guys lost last year's Giants versus Packers bet with Tommy DeVito marching down the field. In the end there, we reviewed The Rookie, but Clint Eastwood's The Rookie, and the very jarring sex scene in that movie. If you can call that sex. I don't know really what to say beyond that, but very funny moments there. I love and appreciate you guys for having me on. And this year's Giant Packer bet didn't go as well. Didn't get the backup quarterback magic I was looking for.
Yeah, and what, pray tell, do you have to watch?
Correct me if I got the title word arrangement wrong, but I think it's something along the lines of Adventures in Tiny Town.
It's The Terror of Tiny Town. It is a 1939 Western with an all little people cast.
Okay, and it's on Tubi, and it is mercifully, I believe, an hour runtime. So
if you happen to see, or if you're a fan of MASH, it is referenced. The episode where they're trying to get The Moon is Blue, Klinger keeps struggling to find a film that they haven't seen, and he talks about The Terror of Tiny Town, and they all are like, hissing and booing and all. So it's a real film. It made a little bit of a recovery as being one of the worst films of all time. And so I thought I could think of nothing better than to have you watch that.
Well, the Giants get everything they deserve this year, and I'll be right there with them as I watch The Terror of Tiny Town. I guess early 2026, I'll hop on and give you guys my my Tiny Town takes.
Sounds good. All right. So with that and all the promotional value that entails, I will tell you that we have not yet decided on what 20 will be, but it sounds like it's going to be expensive for the producers of this show. That's all I will mention right now.
Okay. Well, I will settle for the famous spotted cow 6-pack, so I don't need that. That, or maybe like a Dana-inspired T-shirt that just says "Simply Because" on it, or just some sort of some Dana merch. But I think I like the spotted cow 6-pack.
He doesn't like that I've done this, but I keep a list of all of his like go-to crutch phrases, and I should create a bingo card once, simply because it's like a free space almost.
The crutch phrase is so diminutive, though. I get fired up when I hear it. It's like a catchphrase. It's like when The Rock comes out and says, if you smell.
I'm thinking maybe like one of those like, buttons like from.
This is great.
An easy button.
Oh, Staples.
From Staples.
Right.
And it will just be me going, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's about what you're most famous for outside of that. That and do you need help with the math?
Amazing. Yeah.
So,
I'm shocked you don't have a soundboard yet, Tom, ready to go of you guys.
Oh, I mean, I could probably pull clips. It would be pretty easy, but yeah, I'll save that for a rainy day, let's say. I think by the time we get to 25, though, based on the expense of what it would take to procure what they're thinking about for 20, that we just let whomever wants to pick out their own specialty episode, and we just let them run wild with it.
Ooh. Like they get to pick a movie?
They get something that we cover, either with them or without. Basically, punish us, spoil us, do something that like you think we've wronged you in some way, anything like that, we'll make a special exception and allow you the freedom to basically come in and almost run the show.
So we can do an episode of Dirty Harry dressed up as Lord of the Rings characters.
I think that would confuse people, but sure.
Well,
I would hope it would confuse people.
Just as we have yet to, it's not set in stone, but one of the things we are considering for the 20 is actual liquor glasses with the Gmote symbol on them.
That's incredible. I mean, that would be a hell of a gift there. Some shipping cost expenses there.
Well,
which,
life is, as I say, it's only money, and it's to the point where I'm getting old enough where I like spending it because I've yet to see a U-Haul follow behind a hearse.
I mean, I would be buried in my Gmote liquor glass there, so it would be in the hearse with me.
But regardless, that brings us to our next segment of the show. As everyone looks forward to, at least until the end of the season, every week, we get to our Cinema Legacy rankings. Last week, we left you off at numbers 25 through 21. Just a quick recap there. It's a Wonderful Life at 25. 24 was All About Eve. 23, Jurassic Park. 22, The Silence of the Lambs. And 21, There Will Be Blood, which was the highest finishing movie of the aughts. All right, so taking you without further ado to number 20. Given that we had All About Eve last week, it wasn't going to be a shock that this one followed very closely. We have Billy Wilder's Sunset Boulevard. Number 19, we have the first Gmote episode ever with Raiders of the Lost Ark from 1981. 18, we have another Alfred Hitchcock classic from 1958, Vertigo. 17 is our final international favorite on the list, and this is the highest ranking movie of the 2010s. I give you the Best Picture winner, Parasite, from 2019. And finally, the last movie of the evening that we will reveal here is number 16. It is the highest ranking movie of 1999, and certainly a surprise to no one. We covered it early on in our show, and I think at some point we will obviously revisit it as well, but it ranks highly on our list, and that would be The Matrix from 1999. So, just a quick recap again. Number 20, Sunset Boulevard. 19, Raiders of the Lost Ark. 18, Vertigo. 17, Parasite. And 16, The Matrix. Dad, initial reactions here.
Vertigo being up there, I mean, it's been considered by a lot to be Hitchcock's greatest. I find it interesting. I don't think it's the highest on the list for Hitchcock.
It is not.
So, and I think we probably got it right. I love Hitchcock. I am not a huge Vertigo fan. It is one of my middling Hitchcock films. There are several that I much prefer to it. But, yeah, I mean, I think this is the next 5 is a very broad list of action and drama and mystery. And, I think and science fiction more or less with The Matrix. So I think we're doing a pretty good job of blending a lot of genres.
I'm equally surprised and not surprised to see Parasite this high on the list, given its reputation among the cinephile community and its regard even as soon as 6 years from now, like on Letterboxd and several of these other places, as being basically one that almost universally, save for myself, that gets this kind of treatment. I think the only other film in recent memory that I think almost universally to a person gets this kind of level of treatment, and it's certainly not nearly as high, but it also placed on the Cinema Legacy poll list, was Oppenheimer. That's the only thing in recent memory that I can think of that almost everybody said, yeah, okay, that's one where we know it's as great as it is in the moment that it was made. Then you'd have to probably go back a full decade before that to get to No Country for Old Men, or for that matter, any of the Lord of the Rings movies, to get to other ones that people really regarded highly right off the bat. That being said, Sunset Boulevard, as I mentioned, was not going to be a surprise. I think a lot of people had Sunset Boulevard and All About Eve basically back-to-back on their list. I know of a couple of people that definitely did that. Joey R. was one of them. I know that Voldemort also had it back-to-back on his list. So there were people where I think those two movies are very closely associated, to the point where I don't know if you can watch one almost without the other. But I'm impressed by the list and what has actually placed, because it comes to about the point where I figured it would. I'm more than anything curious about the overall rankings individually per movie, because like The Matrix, I think could have easily been placed in the top 10, but to see it here at 16, it doesn't feel out of place either. So all of these are going to be favorites that we've watched many times. We've covered all 5 of these on our show at one point or another. And I think we've covered every single movie from here to the top of the list at least once on Gmote before. But just stay tuned. If your favorite movie or the one you had at number 1 has not yet appeared, it is likely that it's still in the final 15 here.
I will make a brief, I shouldn't disclose this, but The Terror of Tiny Town is not yet to be done on the list.
Oh my. I had both Vertigo and Parasite on my list, both pretty high. I had Parasite at 26, which even looking at it was a little higher than I thought I had it at, and Vertigo was at 30. Sunset Boulevard was, I actually think it was 51. Like, I think it was the final cut. That and Ordinary People, I believe, were my last ones.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the other two, Matrix, which wasn't on my radar. I like me some Matrix, but just wasn't a choice for me. It feels super high, but I respect it and all that. So there's no gripes there. And I have a weird relationship with indie and the movies. Like they were movies I watched all the time as a kid, and my revisits as an adult haven't gone great. So I think that's like one of those where I have to sit down and give myself like a weekend where I'm like, all right, this is Indiana Jones weekend. Don't half-ass rewatch, like let it all come back in. E.T. was another one like that for me, where like I had so much exposure to it as a little kid that as an adult, I just had no interest in watching, and rewatched, and it is what it is kind of thing. But a great list of 5 movies to have in the discussion for.
And I think most of these place relatively highly within the overall Gmote list as well, which there's probably going to be quite a bit of overlap. I think Parasite is one of the few that kind of got pushed a little bit further down the list, again, for somewhat of a recency bias. But I believe Raiders of the Lost Ark, we've covered it twice, including our first ever episode, which, God, if you really want to experience the full Gmote experience, go back and listen to us recording on lapel mics on a table across from each other. It's one of those like, God, where we started and where we are now.
It's all part of the journey. It's all part of the journey. I've gone back and listened to those episodes. They hold up better than Tom's giving him credit for. You gotta love where you came from. You gotta respect those roots.
But yeah, I don't know. There's so many favorites in this list, and I think all of them have had a significant cultural impact, whether it's in the world of cinema or at large. And it's tough to say that any of these doesn't deserve their overall place. So some additional factoids here, or some stats. This is our 8th and last international film on the list. Parasite joins Ikiru, Ran, Spirited Away, In the Mood for Love, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, Train to Busan, Rashomon, and Seven Samurai. And so that closes that out. As I mentioned, it's also the highest ranking film of the 2010s. So we've now closed out the last 3 decades, the 2000s, 2010s, and the 2020s to basically give you the top ranked film for all of those. I don't think we've finished out any other decade to this point, maybe with the exceptions of maybe like the 20s and the 30s. I don't think we have any from those decades remaining. This is our 13th sci-fi film in The Matrix, Jurassic Park, Star Wars, Back to the Future, 2001, T2, Blade Runner, Interstellar, E.T., Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Wall-E, Arrival, and King Kong. We still have 2 more on the list to go. I think this is by far the single largest individual genre category. Then we added 1 more Best Picture winner this week with Parasite. So far, we have 24 winners all told. We have 2 from the 20s, 3 from the 30s, 2 from the 40s, 3 from the 50s. Surprisingly enough, the most with 4 from the 60s, 2 from the 70s, 1 from the 80s, 2 from the 90s, 2 from the 2000s, 2 from the 2010s, and the lone exception with Oppenheimer in the 2020s. Then, let's see here. Third and last Billy Wilder film on the list. So Sunset Boulevard is his highest ranking one overall, with Double Indemnity and The Apartment also being recognized at numbers 47 and 110. This is our third Alfred Hitchcock on the list in Vertigo, joining Rear Window at number 32 and Rebecca at 104. This is not his last film on the list. It is our fourth Steven Spielberg on the list in Raiders of the Lost Ark, joining Jurassic Park at number 23, Saving Private Ryan at number 63, and E.T. at number 72. This is also not his final film on the list. And then our first and only Bong Joon-ho film, as well as the Wachowskis. They will not be otherwise recognized beyond the 2 that are on the list. I think by most people's accounts, those are their masterpieces.
Justice for Bound, though. Great film from the 90s.
The director breakdown, still we have Kurosawa topping the list with 5 overall films recognized. We have 4 from Christopher Nolan. We got our 4th film from Steven Spielberg. This evening, we have 3 from Quentin Tarantino, 3 from David Fincher, 3 from Stanley Kubrick, 3 from Paul Thomas Anderson, 3 from Billy Wilder, and 3 from Alfred Hitchcock. Then we have a large list of 2 that I will refrain from listing here. Decade breakdown overall, 4 films from the 1920s, 5 from the 30s, 8 from the 1940s, 11 from the 1950s, 10 from the 1960s, 13 from the 1970s, 12 from the 1980s, a whopping 19 films from the 1990s. You can definitely tell the influence of the 90s kids here. 12 from the 2000s and 10 from the 2010s, with 1 lone exception in the 2020s, again, Oppenheimer. And that is, so far, your Cinema Legacy poll up through numbers 16 to 122, or 120 plus ties, I guess is the official way to put it. We still have 15 more films left to go. So, Dad, I know that you know very well what's on the list coming up, but Kieran, any predictions on what may befall us yet on your final episode of the season?
Well, I certainly think there's a few that everyone can set their watch to. You brought up how many Best Picture winners have been named. So 24, and that's just what's been named so far. So that number is going to grow as we move forward. We know that. I mean, I feel like I'm spoiling by saying this, but because I don't know anything for the listener, but I am sure Casablanca is going to come up. I'm sure The Godfather is going to come up. We can go down the line with a couple of others, but one of the things that we looked at is that some of these Best Picture winners are being tossed around throughout the list. I think if you in our Discord, we chatted about how many times was a Best Picture winner included. I don't remember the exact number, so I'm not going to pretend to quote it, but it was a pretty nice percentage of films from the general reaction of it. So while I don't want to sound like the defender of the Academy, because I'm certainly not. The Academy gets things wrong all the time. But I think that we can look back at the list of Best Picture winners and say that they're worth tipping your cap to historically, at the very least. Has The Godfather 2 come up yet?
It has not.
Okay, so I would guess that that's on there. Casablanca, Schindler's List, The Godfather, probably maybe one I'm forgetting, but that would probably be the ones, the best picture winners at least, that I'll predict, and I'm going to leave it at that.
Any thoughts on what might be the number one film?
I have a hankering that it may be my personal number one. That's my guess. And a previous episode of the show that I've been on involves a prison and some people trying to get out of said prison, whether they do or they don't. No spoilers, but that's my guess.
That has not yet come up on the list, and I think that would be a worthy entrant at number one. But we'll find out here in about a month from now, when this episode releases, to when the final two films are revealed. So that takes care of another week on the Cinema Legacy poll. As always, please follow us on any of the socials at GMOT Podcast, wherever you follow social media people. Apparently we have a Facebook because people were tagging us on it recently, which is kind of unusual for me that I didn't know that we, I guess, had that. But that's also available to you for all the older listeners that we have, since I don't think there are too many young people still remaining on Facebook. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I can't say I know what the young people are doing these days now that I'm 35. But okay. But any other social media following, I know that we have the full list either in some type of thread on Twitter, Blue Sky, and I'm pretty sure Instagram, that you can follow there, and you can go back through all of the 120 plus ties that have been revealed to this point. There is also, and I should continually mention this, and I often forget, but on the RonnieDuncanStudios.com/Gmote website, there is a available full accounting of the list with hyperlinks to the individual episodes of the ones that we've covered so far. So you can find all of that there and click through on anything that we've covered, as well as anything that we haven't covered. I promise you we will get to all of these in time, any of the ones that we haven't covered to this point. But otherwise, we left off at best performance. Dad, who did you have down?
Ray Milland.
I did as well.
I went in a different direction with Billy Wilder, the director. To me, this is 40s direction 101 clinic for everyone to see. It's you could take a semester's course on what this movie does in the directing department.
I think that it's splitting hairs between the two because Wilder has a larger part to play with the writing, the direction, the cinematography, the music, but also without Milland delivering, I hate to do this, top 20 best actor performance, best actor winning performance. Let's limit it to that. I don't know if this movie is nearly as good as it is or holds up as well as it is. Like, there are certain ticks and tells that he got so well that, like, to now seem almost cliche. When you begin the film and he's becoming, like, very obstinate, why are you accusing me of things? Why are you questioning? Can't you just trust me? And everybody in their life knows that person who, you know, they're lying when they get like that. They get kind of like belligerent about shit. And you're like, okay, fine. I don't want to fight you, but I know you're full of shit right now. But there's also just those little ticks of him as he's going through the withdrawals in the early morning, to as he kind of lays on the bar, to the pleading and the bargaining that he does throughout the movie, that I fault no one for going with Wilder. I think it's 1A, 1B, and that's why I have Wilder as my secondary, but it's such a difficult splitting of hairs in this one between the two.
Tom, you have this as a top 20, I'm sorry, but top 20 best actor win?
I mean, if I should sit down and do a ranking now that I'm on the spot with it, but yeah, probably.
Wow. It's good to know that I'm around like-minded people. Because I have said that same thing and gotten looks. I'm with you, brother.
I mean, I'm a little bit overly biased to some early acting performances, such as another one that has it's on the CLP list, but it has some level of controversy. I think Bogart's best performance is The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, what he won his Best Actor award for. But other people, I don't know. Or did he win it for African Queen?
Bogart won for African Queen.
See, that's one where I think they might have. But the thing is when they don't reward the right film, like Pacino not winning for Godfather Part 2, like that would have been a top 5 performance, but it's not a winner.
Not.
So
no, the question is winners.
I know,
and that's the top 20 of the winners.
Yeah, when you don't reward the right people, like as iconic
nature
as
of the game.
Brando is in The Godfather, that's not a top 20 performance for me.
I don't disagree.
So maybe I'll sit down and actually like pour through and rank each of the individual winners, but I don't know if I've seen each of their movies that they won for. So that might be an interesting exercise.
Ray Milland in The Lost Weekend is one of the great Best Actor wins for me. It is.
Yeah.
I just that goes to show how highly I think of what Billy Wilder did with this film.
Dad, who did you have as your secondary?
I had Wilder.
Yeah, so I think we basically all flipped. Did you not go Milland with your second?
I gamed the system and put Milland in my charismatic.
Okay.
Just you gotta play the game sometimes, and that's where I went with him. Just because his charisma in this movie is to make that sympathetic of a dark character that. To split between wanting to hang out with him and wanting to be nowhere near the bar that he's hanging out in is a brilliant performance. So I put him in charismatic. My secondary performer was Miklos Rosa, who did the score. The incorporating the theremin, the first person to ever do that in the industry, is an enormous thing. And this film is scored like a horror film. And you know what? When people bring up horror films that were up for or won Best Picture, there's a case to be made that The Lost Weekend could be in consideration, because this isn't not a horror film. I'm sorry to upset all the genre people out there, but there are some horror film natures to what's going on here. If you want to call Black Swan a horror film, which many people do, there are ties to it. And Miklos Rosa from the start here just crushes it with this score. And I totally understand why someone might not vibe with it, because it's a lot. It's not one of those sit back and fly under the radar scores. It's an in-your-face situation. He lost the Oscar, and it's absolutely egregious that he lost to this man. It's a disgrace. Miklos Rosa lost the Oscar to Miklos Rosa. He was double nominated for Spellbound and won for Alfred Hitchcock's Spellbound.
Another great film.
Miklos Rosa, who also scored Ben-Hur, and you could hear ties of the Ben-Hur score in this, which is so cool to me too. But great composer.
Certainly Wilder as my secondary needs mentioning, but I will kind of do a let's say 2B additive here. The cinematography in this, whether it's peering over the glass with the rings in it, or the opening camera shot going from the exterior to panning into the interior of the building without seemingly losing anything. And maybe that is credit to the editing, but there's some absolutely fantastic camera work in this for being a 40s film, which is mostly confined to interior shots. There's just some really good work that's done here. And I think, again, it has a lot to do with Wilder. So it's by no shock or upset that he gets my best secondary performance. But I just want to throw out and highlight sites here, because I think some of the camera work in here is incredibly impressive for what this movie's trying to do.
Totally agree. I'll have more to say on that as we kick the can down the road.
Now, as for your horror film aside here, I don't know if I completely agree even with some of my very loose definitions of horror. Like, I get your argument, but...
Well, it's a stretch. I admit that.
Yeah, but there is one scene that I will get to here when we get to scenes that makes me outright cringe every time. And I just hate watching it because it makes me so like skin crawly. And we'll mention it here in a minute. But most charismatic.
Skin crawly?
Sure.
Okay.
I like it.
Okay.
So you said you had Ray Milland as your most charismatic. Dad, who is your most charismatic?
I had Rosa. The music ended up becoming a genre all to itself. I mean, the fact that he came in and made that into some sort of like, I mean, it became so common in so many different facets of cinema. It kind of what's the term I'm looking for, where the music does not, it's not a melody. It becomes, I can't remember the term I'm looking for at the moment, but the music itself it's no longer music. It's like a sour note, and there's a term for it. Haven't studied enough music to remember the term offhand, but yes. So I think it has a life of its own.
I'm going to go a little off the beaten path with this one. This is somebody I just wanted to recognize because I think he's an important character to the overall story, even as a supporting character, but who builds a rapport with the audience and becomes the archetype for his kind of character moving forward, whether people recognize it or not. And I'm going to go with Howard Da Silva as Nat, the bartender.
Hell yeah. Mr. Birnam.
Yeah.
Watch any bartender movie in the 2010s or now and tell me you don't see this guy as from 80 years ago in modern depictions of bartenders. We just watched the movie Blue Moon, which is a recent Richard Linklater film, and Bobby Cannavale is just doing a Howard Da Silva impersonation through that whole film.
I thought of Blue Moon too when watching this one. The influence is clearly there. Let's talk about the influence. We talk about the horror genre. There's definite influence in The Shining from this film. Another bartender scene in that too. I love Nat in this film. I love it. And he'll come up a little later for me too.
Also, tip your bartenders. I mean, we talk about the wait staff, but your local bartender, let him know he's appreciated here. Christmas is coming up.
Tip them, and if you go out of your way to order a water, you better drink it. Okay, drink that water. Don't make the bartender pour the water and then just storm out of the bar, leaving it on the table, unless you tip. Biggest nitpick in the movie.
I tend to tip bartenders about the same level as wait staff.
That's fine. That works.
Let's move to best scene here. I have 5 nominees. Bottle Out of the Window, which is basically the cold open where we have the tracking shot going from the exterior to the interior, but we see the ominous bottle just hanging out the window, and we're not quite informed yet what exactly is going on or what the movie's supposed to be about, but it's a really good entrance point of not necessarily treating the audience like it has kid gloves and allowing us this little peek into what the movie's going to be about without exactly explicitly saying what it's going to be about. Then I have Coat Mishap, which is the scene where he ends up meeting Jane Wyman's character. And obviously during the play or the intermission, he's having his withdrawals from not being able to drink. I have Nightclub, which is the scene I referenced before as the most cringy. Every time he goes into that nightclub and steals the purse, I want to skip that scene so bad every single time. I'm like, don't do it. Don't do it. Oh, God, just put it back, please. Every single time I watch this movie.
Tom, I just want to make a quick note on that scene because that is the best scene of the book itself. The way it's written, it's written from the first perspective where he's going through the process. And as he's describing himself go through it, it's written like he's James Bond and he is doing an Ocean's 11 heist of this purse, and it's so easy for him that he almost feels bad for the people around him. And there's this quick cut of like everyone around him basically watched him do it the whole time. Like they were like, this is like, he at no point was he fooling anyone. He just embarrassed himself throughout it and then went through there. And in rewatching it after I read the book, I was looking to see if like, how was this adapted? And was it crushed? So yeah. A really hard book to adapt. And Billy Wilder took it, and there's some times where you adapt a book, it's like you take it and you just kind of verbatim do it. This is one of those unadaptable pieces that he was just took the ball and ran with it and did an amazing job. So certainly in the mix.
Then I have as my fourth nominee here, Mental Ward, which I think needs no further explanation. And then the final one, which starts to maybe happen by the point where you kind of see it in the mental ward, but it flips it when he goes back to his own apartment. And that's Hallucinations, where he sees the rat and the bat and they're in the hole in the wall. So he's having his own detox issues himself. Now, I know that there's plenty other of scenes that you can still pick here. These were only the 5 that I thought were the most important, but what did I miss?
There are 2 different sets of Nate's bar scenes.
Those are my 2 also.
And okay. I just lumped them together as Nate's bar. So I just have that as there's 2 different groups, but it's one set to me.
Yeah, I had those 2 also. Him walking into the bar for the first time and meeting everyone and kind of being sober and getting indoctrinated to the bar. And then the second time would be the next day with the breakfast and him talking about writing his book, and that leads into the flashback of the jacket. So those are the 2 that I wanted to highlight.
So that adding those 2 in, we have Bottle Out the Window, Nat's Bar, Coat Mishap, Breakfast Bar, Nightclub, Mental Ward, and Hallucinations. What is the best scene?
I have Nate's bar. It's where he is
Nat.
Excuse me. Nat's bar. Excuse me. Nat's bar. It's the scene where he is recognizing himself as an alcoholic, but not admitting that he has a problem. It's where he's trying to rationalize everything. Just one drink. Oh, don't wipe that up. I like the little rings. I think that is the most telling thing of a or a non-reflective or self-reflecting alcoholic that I can think of in anything in a movie or book. It just is the epitome of not recognizing the problem, but recognizing the circumstances, if that makes any sense. So to me, that's by far the most or the best scenes, because I think it sets up everything else.
I often attack best scene by trying to think of what's the scene accomplishing the most and has the highest degree of like difficulty and quality to it. But for my pick this time, I'm going to go with the scene that's the most affecting for me, and it is the nightclub scene. As I mentioned, like, it is the one that gives me the most difficult and emotional reaction within the film.
If it's okay, I'm going to kind of merge my best and favorite segments because they're somewhat married to each other. My favorite comes first, and my favorite scene is when he walks into Nate's bar for the first time and gets himself indoctrinated, and he's starting his weekend, and there's this level of youthful excitement to him as he's having his first few shots, and you can understand how a character like this can be remotely charismatic and intellectual and conversational, and he's meeting different characters as they come through, and he's a bit of a presence in the bar every time. And that's what he says, don't wipe the circles away, let me have them. That every time I see this film, the first act of this movie is dynamite. I mean, it is just dynamite. And every time I see that film, I'm like, God, this is why I love this movie so much. I think the best scene is the second time he comes to the bar and talks about writing his book, and the setup to the bottle, quote unquote, which is what he's going to call his book, which is merges into the coat scene a little bit too. So you could kind of put those two together as a hybrid, because it's then a flashback, it's a framing device for the leopard coat scene, which is a phenomenal scene too. So if we're doing the broader scope, you put them two together, but that second pair into, and there's essential dialogue between him and Nat about the end of the book, which plays into what I feel the end of the movie is. So all about Nat's bar for me, all about Nat's bar.
As far as my favorite scene, I'm going to go with the coat mishap, simply because I have a fondness for meet cute scenes, and this is endearing.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't have to be more complicated than that.
Totally agree.
My favorite scene is the nightclub scene, simply because it is by far the most cringy. When you're an alcoholic, that should be the scene that's, to me, the most favorite, because it most exemplifies the level that you are willing to go to supply yourself.
As far as the most indelible moment for me, and I don't think there's any one thing that just naturally sticks out to people, so this is going to be a little varied, but I really enjoy the opening because it inserts you into the movie very subtly, but that bottle out the window, it's just this little teaser that you don't understand why it's there, but once you recognize, you're like, oh, this is what I'm in. And it's just the cleverness of that device early on, signifying you're in the hands of a master, I think is a great entrance point. And anytime I turn the movie on, that's the point at where I'm like, oh, yep, all right, I remember exactly where I am. Here we go.
Tom, I wish I thought of that. That's a brilliant answer. I have to go with the bottle in the lamp shot when he's just torn his apartment apart and he's just defeated and he just looks up and sees the shadow of the bottle in the lamp, the circle shadow, all the circles in the movie. We'll talk about that more. That's just, when I think about Lost Weekend, I just think about the bottle sitting up in that lamp that he couldn't find from the night before.
Well, and I think there's a scene before that's foreshadowing, and it actually flashes on the lamp, but doesn't show the bottle the first time, that he's like ripping the apartment apart. And it's in his desperation, and it flashes like it does this long take where it's his face looking paranoid, but then with the lamp overhead. So that by the time when he comes back and he's just completely out of it, he thinks he's got nowhere to go. And he realizes, oh, there's where the bottle is. It's the cleverness of those little subtle things throughout the movie. Again, that just, to your point, Wilder is a master.
The cinematic decision making in this movie is like stupid great. It really is. He put together this thing in such an unbelievable way.
For me, the most indelible moment is the hallucinations. And I indicated or foreshadowed it a little. For my dad, I guess, he saw snakes. And snakes crawling all over the walls, all over the bed, all over him. So when you hear something like that and then you see it in the film, it just cemented it to me. So, and I'm not going to say anything more than that.
Well, that looks like a good spot for our second break. We'll be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, and before we get to the Stanley Rubric in a minute, if you're ever curious about our Master Greatest Movies of All Time list that has every graded movie we've ever discussed on the show, there's a link in the episode description of every episode of this show, or you can go to RonnieDuncanStudios.com and find us the top entry on the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast show page. That has the grades we've done so far for all 261 movies we've graded, and we continue to add more each week. Make sure to check that out as we go and follow along. Dad, do we have anyone to remember this week?
Yes. Humayun Rashadi, 78, Iranian actor, director, Kite Runner, Taste of Cherry. Dan McGrath, 61, American television writer, The Simpsons, King of the Hill, Saturday Night Live. Elizabeth Franz, 84, American actress, Broadway, The Death of a Salesman, Tony winner, Brighton Beach Memoirs, film School Ties, Christmas with the Cranks. Richard Derbyshire, 65, English singer, songwriter, producer, band Living in a Box. Jim Avila, 70, American television journalist, ABC News. Tatsuya Nakadai, 92, Japanese actor, Ron Harakiri, The Human Condition. Cleto Escobedo III, 59, American musician, Cleto and the Cletones, and bandleader for Jimmy Kimmel Live. Sally Kirkland, 84, American actress, Anna, Days of Our Lives, Coming Apart.
So there are a few names that stick out to me immediately. Dan McGrath was a longtime writer on multiple different shows and had a definite influence on particularly animation in the 90s and 2000s with The Simpsons and King of the Hill. He had an effect on Saturday Night Live, so that's one. I'm not as familiar with some of the names on here as well, but I'll recognize one specifically, and that'd be Tatsuya Nakadai for his work, particularly because I've not seen Ron or The Human Condition yet, but this is a film, much like some of the other ones that featured on my list, that I've seen basically one time. And it was for a discussion that we were having offline or in a separate conversation where I watched Harakiri for the first time. Somebody picked it because it's the #1 rated movie on Letterboxd. And I'm like, all right, another Japanese samurai film. I mean, I kind of like these, but some of them are old hat and what. That film is worthy of being the #1 film on Letterboxd. It is my #5 of all time that I submitted for the CLP list, but it is an outstanding film that I think more people really need to watch, because it is not just a basic samurai film. It's very much a mystery film. It's a noir film. It's got so many things wrapped into it, and it's a father's struggle that he's imparting to the audience that I think reframes it in such a way that is almost revolutionary to the genre itself. So if you enjoy some of the samurai films, and if particularly, it's not a Kurosawa film, but it's very much in that style. If you enjoy Japanese samurai films like that, please go out and see, do yourself a favor and see Harakiri.
Added to my watch list in real time. There.
Thank you.
What a pitch. I just want to throw a word on Dan McGrath if I can. I'm not going to be the guy that's going to roll up and say the greatest Simpsons episode ever, any of that. But I would imagine that in that sort of conversation, Bart of Darkness might come up. And Dan McGrath wrote that episode. That is the homage to Rear Window, where Bart breaks his leg. The Simpsons get a pool. Bart breaks his leg, and he witnesses the Flanders and the potential murder mystery over there. It is the most indelible Simpsons episode for me, outside of the Treehouse of Horror, which Dan McGrath was a big contributor in as well. So for your Simpsons fans out there, Dan McGrath is a sacred name in the writing of that. So much love there.
And so we fondly remember these here for their contributions to the arts with a moment of silence in their honor. Thank you. Let's move to best funniest lines. I will admit, in putting this together earlier this evening, I would have thought for as good of a dialogue as this film has, there'd be more quotable lines, but I'm really not finding a ton here. So I'm going to start with Nat moves to wipe away the circle of whiskey from Don Birnam's glass. Don Birnam. Don't wipe it away, Nat. Let me have my little vicious circle. You know, the circle is the perfect geometric figure. No end, no beginning.
Don Birnam. Don's a little tight. Most people drink a little. A lot of them get tight once in a while. Sure, the lucky ones can take it or leave it. But then there are ones who can't take it and can't leave it. What I'm trying to say is I'm not a drinker. I'm a drunk.
Man, I'm the opposite. I think I could quote this entire screenplay. But here's one of my favorite lines of it. The ladies in the street. That's the nice young man who drinks.
Oh, yeah. Those 40s sentimentalities there.
That's an RDB favorite.
I will pull out this one that I'm sure my dad had on his list because he often cites it to the wrong person who is actually quoted for it. Most men lead lives of quiet desperation. I can't take quiet desperation.
Okay.
So much sorry.
Who do I misquote it to?
You often cite it to Oscar Wilde.
Yes.
And that's not who said it.
Who said it then?
It's Henry David Thoreau.
Oh.
I looked it up after the last time that you said that, and I'm like, that doesn't feel like an Oscar Wilde quote. So whomever, I think, Dad, you're up.
Bim. Nolan. It's just like the doctor was just telling me. Delirium is his disease of the night. Good night.
Don. None of that 12-year-old aged in the wood. Not for me.
Helen St. James. We're both trying, Don. You're trying not to drink, and I'm trying not to love you.
Wick Burnham. Trees and grass and sweet cider, buttermilk and water from the well that's colder than any old... Don. Wait, please. Why this emphasis on liquids? Very dull liquids.
Also Wick Burnham. Don't you know that with you, it's like stepping off a roof and only expecting to fall one floor.
That actually is good, and I didn't see that one.
Unbelievable quote.
Don Birnam. Just give me another drink. Nat. Mr. Boynham. This is the morning. Don Birnam. That's when you need it most. In the morning. Haven't you learned that yet? At night, this stuff's a drink. In the morning, it's medicine.
Don Birnam. I've never done anything. I'm not doing anything. I never will do anything. 0, 0, 0.
Don Birnam. It shrinks my liver, doesn't it? It pickles my kidneys, yeah. But what does it do to my mind? It tosses the sandbags overboard so the balloon can soar. Suddenly, I'm above the ordinary. I'm competent, extremely competent. I'm walking a tightrope over Niagara Falls. I'm one of the great ones. I'm Michelangelo, molding the beard of Moses. I'm Van Gogh, painting pure sunlight. I'm Horowitz, playing the Emperor Concerto. I'm John Barrymore before the movies got to him by the throat. I'm Jesse James, and I'm the two brothers. I'm all three of them. I'm W. Shakespeare. And out there, it's not 3rd Avenue any longer. It's the Nile, not the Nile, and down the barge of Cleopatra.
My final one here. Don Birnam. Let me have one, Nat. I'm dying. Just one.
I'm out.
I will end with the final quote of the film. Out there in that great big concrete jungle, I wonder how many others out there are like me. Poor bedeviled guys on fire with thirst. Such comical figures to the rest of the world as they stagger blindly towards another binge, another bender, another spree.
All right, that takes us to the Stanley Rubric. Legacy is up first. This is a measure of 2 equal yet separate groups. The audience and the industry, 5 and 5 points apiece, as they would see the legacy of the film approximately 5 years after it came out. So 1950 to today, 75 years worth of potential legacy. How do they view this film in the aggregate? 5 and 5 points apiece for a total of 10. Dad, would you like to go first or second?
Second.
Okay. I'm going to try and make this fairly simple. I don't think there's a whole lot to discuss here. On an industry level, I think there's a little bit of reverence, but it's somewhat been forgotten. I think it's lumped into basically 2 lists. Billy Wilder directed movies and Best Picture winners, which we kind of mentioned earlier. So from that standpoint, I will give it a slight bit of edge to the fact that it has been commemorated by the Library of Congress, although there are a lot of movies that have been commemorated or reserved or preserved by the Library of Congress anymore. And it's not one of the early entrants. It's a little bit later on in the cycle. So I'm going to give that a 3.5. And unfortunately, even among cinephiles, I think this is probably one of the few or the little watched Best Picture winners, even from this era, that people just have not caught up on. I am willing to say that I might be wrong on this and that I may adjust, but for right now, I'm going to give it a 1 because nobody, not a soul in the general public knows about this movie, and it's only a very select few of cinephiles who seem to have a reverence for this film. So I have a 4.5 right now.
I'm not far off from your industry. I'm at a 3. For the public, I'm going to give it a little bit more, but not much. I'm at a 1.5. Our office poll, for example.
The world famous office poll brought to you by Dana Duncan.
I love this segment, by the way. There was like a moment in time where you were trying to get rid of this. And no, as a loyal listener, like, I got to know what the office thinks. I got to know.
Well, it's there was only 2 people out of the 20.
Okay, who was the second? Because my mother raised her hand, and the only reason she heard of it is
Mary. Mary.
Oh, okay. So there was a second one because I thought it was only Mom, and Mom only heard of it because we forced her to sit down and watch it with us on Saturday, and she found it boring, was her words.
My favorite segment of the week is the office poll. Just getting that out there.
So I'm at a 1.5, so at a 3, so 4.5.
So you basically came to the exact same score, just slightly different on the categories.
Yeah.
I got in my head a little bit this week looking at my old scores from the old episodes, some cringy moments here or there on the grid, but I looked at Bad Day at Black Rock and Stalag 17, which both had the same score at a 4.33 we ended up at. And I just said, I can't have Lost Weekend be lower than that. I am going to echo both of your scores. I was a little shaky on the industry score, Tom. You worded it well and scoped it well with the 3.5. So you got me up to that 4.5 I needed to be. It's absolutely a 1 from the audience. I agree with that. 3.5 from the industry. I think I weight the award stuff a little better, but I guess we'll get into that with impact. So, yeah, 4.5.
Yeah, I think in the moment, the award stuff tends to aggregate better into the impact and significance because even though, and I think I've recently said that some credit is due to people picking up the film because it won Best Picture, this is probably one of the lone circumstances where if you're going to watch this for the first time, it's probably because of that specific reason. And you might contribute a little bit to legacy, but I don't know how many people are just going out of their way unless they're completionists like you and I are. But that being said, that's a 4.5 average between the three of us. I have a feeling that will be the lowest category of the evening.
Like mine's tonight.
So with that, and part of the reason is to try and raise the legacy score by promoting this film. Impact and significance is similar to legacy, except it's dealing in the initial 5 years, so 1945 to 1950. What is the impact and significance as felt between the same two groups, the industry and the audience? 5 and 5 points apiece for a total of 10. And with such, I will let you go, Mr. Black, so that you have the opportunity to make whatever argument on awards you'd like.
A little factoid that was not brought up today is that this is one of the original Palme d'Or winners. So this is a rare Best Picture Palme d'Or winner. There are only 3. I'm sorry, after this past year, I believe there are 4. It is The Lost Weekend. It is Marty. It is Parasite, as we cited this week on the Cinema Legacy list. And I believe this past year's Best Picture winner, Honora, adds to that list. So there are 4. So this was a Best Picture winner, a Palme d'Or winner, a Best Actor winner, a Best Director winner, a Best Writer winner, which means it is an award short of the elusive Big 5. Now, Jane Wyman, who we haven't brought up yet, who is phenomenal in this film, and I results may vary with her performance, but I actually, the more times I watch this film, the more I'm impressed by what she's done with what she's given. And it's a shame she didn't get to be the first lady, but, I won't litigate that. This could have been a Big Five winner. It was offered to Katharine Hepburn. She turned it down. I think it's a worse movie with Katharine Hepburn in it. But as she takes the role, maybe the campaign looks sexier. Maybe it gets in that. This is, in the moment, this is a big, big deal. It is industry. It's a slam dunk 5. Audience, as you mentioned, I believe you said, it's a little shady with the box office. Okay, but if it's 4th, people went out to see it. I can't give it a full score because it didn't endure, which is, I guess, a little unfair as we're keeping it in the 5-year gap. There's also a slight bit of makeup love because he got snubbed with Double Indemnity the year before against Going My Way. So factor that in a bit. I'm going to go 9.5. 5 and a 4.5.
I am not so different from you in that I have this at a 5 for the industry. The awards attention and basically cementing that Billy Wilder could do just about whatever he wanted at this point is telling enough. Between Double Indemnity and then cementing it with Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay, or Best Adapted Screenplay, he basically got carte blanche or a blank check from there on to do whatever he wanted. He didn't fully take advantage of that until 1950 and then beyond. Like, his run in the 50s is unassailable. Between him and Hitchcock, probably the 2 best of the entire decade in the 1950s. And I don't think I'm going really out of turn by saying that. But that being said, somewhere between 1945 and 1950, he doesn't get to do Sunset Boulevard and then get to do everything that comes thereafter without winning Best Director and winning Best Picture here. So I cement that as a 5. I think it's a fairly easy score there. The audience on this one, again, because last week I said I gave a small caveat to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest did an amazing box office for the 1970s and making like 120 some million, but it pales in comparison to some of the other major box office players that reset records in that decade. And so I said, it's a 4.5 only on that small caveat. So if I'm measuring against and staying consistent, a film that finishes 4th in its particular year, while it's popular, and I'm sure a lot of people saw it, I got to give it a 4 there. I don't have anything really to measure it against. And if we're just simply going on audience perspective and how much money it actually made, I think a 4 is the good settle point. So I'm at a 9.
Number 1 grossing movie of that year, by the way, was Bells of St. Mary's, the sequel to Going My Way, which beat Billy Wilder for Best Picture the year before of Double Indemnity. So he won the big crown over it here.
Industry, I'm at a 5. I'm not going to say anything more than that. You've already said most. Public, 4th, 4.5. I just can't go down to your 4 based on your arguments. I disagree. So I'm at a 9.5.
So that's a 9.3 repeating between the 3 of us. Let's move to novelty on this one. This is a measure of 2 distinct things within this category. So we've divided this category pretty much as of this season between originality, having any type of originality within the movie itself. Could be about the subject material, usually is, but there could be other pieces having to do with originality for 5 points and execution for an additional 5 points. I will start us here and just say I have a 10. This is an audacious movie for the time. It is unlike, I think, almost anything that came out in that time that you could say, and I think it's a high-level wire act execution, so 10.
Originality, 5. No question about it. Execution, I would normally say a 5. The only problem I have is the short shift of this ending. That
so
would
be
he
tease you up.
Can I sell you on it?
Go ahead. Try.
Okay. I have a 10 on this one. let's talk invention, and this isn't part of the sales, but just throwing it out there. The Theramone introduced it to film. This is the original alcohol abuse movie. If you go whatever Google AI chat you do, what is the first movie to portray alcoholism in depth? It's The Lost Weekend. It's the earliest root of that. The shot of him walking on the road to pass the time is a famous shot that's used. It's rooted back to this film. That's the inventiveness. Novelty with that's originality, execution. My favorite thing about this movie, and we're going to bleed into rewatchability, but is the reference and the usage of shots. So we reference the circle, like don't take my circles away from me, the circle. You can pick the circles out in this film everywhere you go. Every time I watch it, I find a new one, whether it's the cigar store Indian with the circle in his hand, whether it's the girl going up the stairs with the hoop, whether it's all the lamps with the circles in them, the clocks with the circles in them, the circles on the bar, of course, the spiral in the barbershop window, the globes outside the pawn shop. He's constantly referencing the script with visualities. Now let's talk about the end, the abrupt ending, the end. We talk in the bar about we don't know how to end this thing. Bartender goes, I know how it ends. Guy runs on the tracks or climbs the Empire State Building and dives off. That's how it ends. We get a shot of the Empire State Building at the beginning of the film. We get a shot of the Empire State Building in the middle of the film as Birnam is crossing over the train tracks. They take a shot of the Empire State Building. And the final shot of the film is the Empire State Building with an abrupt the end. I think the abrupt the end is the real end of where this character is going. That's my thesis and my theory of the film. It's referenced a few times in the script. I don't think a movie could be executed any better from a director's standpoint. And the originality, I think we all agree, is the perfect score.
Now, I will also say, and maybe this is just in fairness, I think your argument is that the ending doesn't age well, and that could be actually reserved to classicness, which is where I dinged it a little bit, but not in execution. So I think you have latitude to still make the same argument, but maybe you're in the wrong category.
Well, I agree. I mean, I did take a little bit down on classicness for that reason. The problem I have is the execution makes it seem clean. And what it does is to me, what it should have been was Birnam admits he has a problem, but he should have acknowledged that this is going to be a long road. And it kind of implies that he's going to get over it. And that's where I have a problem with the execution in the script itself.
But would an alcoholic in the moment ever admit that? Would be my question. Is like there's no resolution to this. Like he's saying, "I'm good. I'm gonna get a script to this copy to this guy and this guy." I don't think there's any evidence in the end of this film that this is a happy ending. I think it's a happy end of the day. I
don't know about that.
I think it's a happy end of the day. I don't think this guy is well at the end of this.
Well, we'll get to that later. But again, I think, Dad, you're projecting modern sensibilities and how most of these movies would go in a modern sense onto a film that wasn't trying to be that. And kind of,
all right,
you have to send the audience out on at least a little bit of a clean note for them. Like, this isn't the 70s where it's gritty and you could have just said Don Birnam dies in the gutter. It's not that kind of era.
Correct.
Yeah.
He was in a code era restricted time of filmmaking.
I'll go with the 10.
Okay. So then that's a 10 average between the three of us. Now, I will give you carte blanche here because, as everyone knows, Classicness lives in the gray and you are our senior nuance correspondent. So do whatever argumentation you would like here on Classicness. I give you the floor.
I'm at a 9.5. I think this is almost a perfect classicness for an 80-year-old film. The only problem I have, again, is the last portion, where it kind of implies a happy ending. And for those of us who have, spent time living around addiction, been involved with addiction, know people with addiction, it's seldom a clean ending.
It's not linear.
And so I'm going to give it a half point down, so I'm at a 9.5.
I will basically mirror yours and say that I added 2 points for being well ahead of its time, 2 points for timelessness, but my point down, if you started a baseline of a 6, that would be a full 10. Where I give a half point down is for the ending, and I give an additional half point down because some of the graphics look very dated. When it comes to the rat and the bat, it looks a little funky. Like, obviously the symbolism is supposed to be the important part there, but it's like, okay, yeah, all right, I get it. But other than that, I have a 9.
I look at the rat bat scene too, Tom. That's one of the things you have to defend when people bring up this movie. I think the subject material in general is super complicated. So a 10 in classicness feels like no. Like I don't know if like any movie at any time regarding mental health can be a 10 classicness. It's just too complicated to tap down in the medium. I have the same score as Tom with the 9. Because it does need to be said how well some of this ages 80 years later, the struggles that are going on and how we analyzed it as a filmmaker then as how we're analyzing it as filmmakers today. But yeah, I'm my original one was 9, so we'll go with that.
So that's a 9.17 between the three of us. Let's move to rewatchability then. Insert your own subjective test. The original, let's say, subjective test on this one was aptly named after our guest when he tried to come on and basically introduce a legal version of this as catnip for us. I've taken a more objective approach, trying to go back to the original roots this year, but we will leave it to Kieran B to start us off here with his own subjective finding on rewatchability.
So my original test for those OG listeners out there, or the newbies in the mix, was how often do I go back and say, I need to put that back on? Like I haven't seen that in a while. Let me put it back on. And the other one is if it comes across my desk, if it's on Pluto or Tubi or back in the day on TNT, or it's floating around, it's on. I got to stop and watch it. But there was one, and this, based on those two alone, probably wouldn't score super high on this, but there was something I forgot about in the rewatchability quality, and that's the Kubrickian rewatchability, in that I may not go out of my way to watch a Kubrick film, but when I do, I will always get something greater out of it. And that's what this film has. The subject material itself is nothing about it is rewatchable. 40s films in general, accessibility and all that, we get all that. But I got to tell you, I watched it the other night and picked out things I had never seen in it. Tom, the line I gave about the jumping off the building and going one floor, I had never heard that until I heard it the other night and was like, whoa, what a line. I paused the movie and had to type it down into my phone. It's just an incredible line. You jump off the building, expect to drop one floor. Another Empire State Building reference, by the way. Expect to drop one floor. What an incredible comment. So I think rewatchability wise, I'll float it up with the fact that when you rewatch it, you get a lot about it. But there's no way could be a yearly watch. It just really couldn't be. I mean, it's not designed to be that way. I think I'm going to be kind. I was going to be kind and give it an 8, but I think to be fair, I'll go 7.5. I'll go 7.5, saying that, like, traditionally it would be a standard. Like, I'm obviously not going to turn it off if it's on. I don't know. I'm going to go out of my way, but I'll give it a little love beyond the 7. Can't go to an 8. 7.5.
You missed your calling as a constitutional scholar or lawyer.
I ended up as a bartender. It's all right.
Not much.
You don't have to follow any rules when you're bartending, other than that, of course, don't serve people if they've had too much or if they're not old enough.
Well, and basically all the health regulations, but
of course, yes, but
we don't have drama shop in Wisconsin, so
the verbal litigation and all that. You just kind of say what you want and hope for the best. Don't talk politics, don't talk religion, and you're good.
Bars and bartenders have no liability for serving intoxicated people in Wisconsin.
Well, I'll leave that to you. Anyway, go ahead with your score.
Let me put it this way. I'm in a movie subgroup on Reddit. A young girl, 14, I think, put out and said, okay, for all of you people who are, movie people, I'm trying to develop an appreciation for older films. Is there a older film that you would recommend? Without missing a beat, my response was, watch The Lost Weekend. I'm going with an 8 because I'm one of these people that's going to be out there championing this film on a regular basis. I'm going to be telling people they need to watch this film. I'm going to be encouraging people while they're, if it's a night where there isn't much on, watch the film. So I'm going to go with an 8 because I'm going to watch it again a few times. I get more out of it every time I do. I think it develops an appreciation for the situation, an understanding. And for an 80-year-old film, I cannot believe how relevant it still is.
All right. Taking the more objective standard to the wide variety of different audience members and people who aren't completionists and such, I think this is going to be a little bit harder sell, other than the fact that it is a Billy Wilder film. So if you have some association with him and wanting to watch his movies, I'm not sure that this is going to come up between that or that it's a Best Picture winner. It's black and white. It is a little bit slow on the pace. It's very character driven. It's a lot of conversational. I don't personally feel that way, but I can see how other people would. I think that the subject material is very difficult. And so by that extension, I'm going to give it a 5 because I think this is going to be a little bit harder sell than some other favorites that Kieran's been on before. Like, I think Bad Day at Black Rock might be more enjoyable and easier to sell than maybe this movie might be.
Can I liked what Dana had to say. Can I change my score to an 8 from a 7.5 to an 8? He convinced me to go up 0.5, please.
He already started putting in his number, didn't you?
He
impacted me.
Oh.
He impacted me, and it was significant. It was a
So
classic
good.
and novel statement.
That is so good.
I want to rewatch it.
Well, it's good that I remembered enough of the other math here, but it will move the positioning. So instead of this being a 6.83, it's going to be a straight 7 for rewatchability as the average between the three of us. Now, how that will move in the scoring, I will tell you here in just 1 second. But, so audience score on this one, we had an 81% for Google users and an 89% for Rotten Tomato users, giving us an 8.5. So to repeat the categories, we had a 4.5 for Legacy, by far the lowest category, 9.33 for Impact and Significance, a 10 for Novelty, a 9.17 for Classicness, a 7 for Rewatchability, and an audience score of 8.5, giving us a final total of 48.5. And currently placing it on the list, tied. Now, originally it was going to be between Hoosiers and Superbad at number 100 exactly, but it is now tied at number 97 with a movie that's come up a few times tonight, Parasite.
Yeah, Parasite, Lost Weekend. That's a Joey R. The two of his favorite movies. That's fantastic. I love it.
So, as always,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but in the Kieran B rankings, it moves ahead of Shane, right behind Gladiator in the 5 slot. So there you go.
Yeah, Gladiator's 88.
Yeah.
Overall on the list. So, as usual, if you have any quibbles with any of our scoring or any feedback that you want to give us on this one, or just simply watched the movie and thought it was even better than we advertised it as, which is possible, you can write us at greatestalltimemoviepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on any of our socials at GModePodcast, or you can contact us on our website, RonnieDuncanStudios.com/GModePodcast. Let's quickly move to remaining questions on this one. I think that we've covered quite a bit, but there are some more specific ones that I have here listed. How soon before Don drinks again? I think it's going to be relatively soon. Within the week.
Yeah, I mean, I don't view this as a happy ending at all. I think all the evidence is in the script. This is, to me, like I said earlier, is the most misunderstood endings. I like it to the Sopranos ending where the screen goes black. It's not and I'm a big supporter of whatever you think a movie, your interpretation of a movie is yours. It's not the filmmakers and all that. Like whatever you want the movie to be is yours, and that's fine. But I do think Billy Wilder put specific evidence in this film. The reference to the ending of the book while he's in the bar and the bartender saying, well, from my perspective, meaning the guy who's not the one drinking the drinks, the one who's serving the drinks, it ends either two ways. Either he jumps on the tracks or jumps off the Empire State Building. The references to the Empire State Building as far as the closing scene, the abrupt the end at the end, and the characters constantly referencing not knowing how to end the book. I think that ultimately someone who commits to the addiction, unless they really intervene themselves, will never truly have, in the filmmaker's perspective, will never truly have. That's what the movie is putting out there. But I don't think the book gets written. I don't think anything ends well for Don Birnam here in this.
And that's why I wouldn't necessarily say it's a happy ending. I think it's a false ending.
Yeah.
It's not the conclusion of Don Birnam.
Yeah.
It's not the conclusion of Don Birnam that you want, where there's the finality to it. But that would have been hard for just to see in this 2 to 3 days and then peer into what this guy's life is and it to end suddenly in that way without him just completely spinning out of control. And again, this is not the era for that to have happened. If this is the 70s, he dies in a gutter.
Oh, right. Which is a worse ending on top of it. That's the other extreme of the worst ending. The other one little thing I want to put out, we talk about the emphasis of the circles in the film. In the beginning of the film with the bottle hanging out the window, it shows Don Birnam and the drapes that pull down. There's the string, and at the bottom of the string, there's a little circle that is between the camera and his face. And in the end of the movie, you get the same shot with him recalling the bottle out the window, him and the circle between his face and the bottle, the endless circle of the addiction. The filmmaking in it is just incredible. Yeah, I don't view this as a happy ending at all. I think it's a dour ending in a time period where they weren't allowed to put that out there. However, if it inspired people at the time to stop their addictions, up their ways, it achieved its goal of that. That's the beauty of interpretation in film. I would have to think there's people out there who maybe had relationships they weren't treating the best ways and they were leaning too much into their addictions and whatnot. And that's the good part about having some potential hope to an ending.
Well, and I think, and I'll lead this into the next question that I have, part of the hopeful ending is how the peripheral characters start to react to him, such as Jane Wyman's character, feels like she's rolling up her sleeves. She's got a certain level of hope, so she's not going to give up on him right now. And Nat, the bartender, sees that she's there and that, so there's a little bit of this hopeful attitude in the others around him. So by the same extension, Dad, what do you think? How long does that relationship stay together where she's trying to, when does she give up, essentially?
I have no idea. there's this common misnomer that exists among people in relationships that I can change him, I can change her. Okay. It's impossible to say because it varies from person to person.
I thought her relationship with him was one of the most realistic things about this movie, and that's and I've heard people nitpick, well, how could she possibly be that enamored with him? And you referenced earlier, Tom, about me being in the service industry, and that's one of my biggest takeaways is you see some unbelievable relationships with people where it's like, why is this person leaning on that person, this person leaning on that person? It's a weird, wild jungle gym out there, man. And people get lonely. People find sovereignty in others, and you can't adjudicate that stuff. And I don't think anything about this film is unrealistic whatsoever when it comes to relationships between two people.
My last question here, does his novel ever get written? I don't think so.
Who knows?
But it's I will support the interpretation that it does. That's the beauty of film, and this is a good ending. This is a great ending where it can be interpreted in multiple ways. That's why I feel it's so misunderstood. It's like this isn't a wrap it up happy ending. It's an abrupt, what'd you call it, Tom? A false ending, and I like that. And the 70s ending was another thing or we even see in like modern horror films where everything has to be so grim and brutal. And that's the horror is the ending. It's like, come on, let's let the mind pick out where these characters go. The Shining, we mentioned before, is another brilliant ending. So yeah, I love it.
Any remaining questions for either of you? All right. Hearing none, I would like to thank our guest, Kieran, for being back with us for his 17th time, because we do count the post-Oscars reaction shows to your overall totals. But
made my appearance.
With that, again, just remind everybody where you can be found and what you're working on.
Best Picture Cast, all the socials, all the podcast platforms. We are closing out 2025. We had our horror episode with Alien. Go check that out. We will have our Thanksgiving episode. We always do Thanksgiving Stephen King. That's going to be The Dead Zone, starring Christopher Walken, David Cronenberg film. And we will have our Christmas episode, which is going to be Miracle on 34th Street. The OG, nominated the same year as, I believe, Going My Way, which would have been the year before The Lost Weekend, 44. Yeah. So we have specialty episodes also on Big Daddy, our sub 50 winner, and our actors tournament winner, Harrison Ford, and I believe, Tom, one of your favorites, Empire Strikes Back. That's going to be our final episode of the year right before New Year's Eve. So you kick out the new year with Yoda and Boba Fett and the gang in Empire Strikes Back.
I thought for sure that you guys were going to pick The Running Man this year, given that it's back in vogue in the moment. It just came out that would be your Stephen King, but I guess I was wrong.
That would have been a good guess. Yeah, the runner-up was Dolores Claiborne, a real deep track. I don't know if anyone that's ringing any bells, but yeah, Thanksgiving is one of our deep track holidays. But
so, remaining thoughts for the week, Dad. I will run right into it and say that we both saw The Running Man.
Yes.
Did you like it?
I liked pieces of it. I think the action sequences when they were there, which it wasn't nearly as action heavy as I was hoping it was. I thought it'd be just like him on the run at all times, and it really kind of didn't feel that way. But Glenn Powell is a star, and he's extremely charismatic. My problem lies in that the script is all over the fucking place. It's character development is poor. It's a convoluted plot. It doesn't seem to know what exactly it's trying to do or say. And so overall, I think I gave it like either a 2 or a 2.5, which for me is kind of like down the middle. There were parts of it that I like. I wouldn't mind rewatching it at some point, but it's not something that I'm like going to actively seek out to rewatch again.
I thought it was enjoyable. Is it a good film? No. I kind of have come up with my own grading, which is on a scale of 1 to 5 as far as enjoyability. I give it probably about a 3.5. As far as quality of the film itself, on a scale of 1.5, I'm at a 0.15 or a 1.5 as far as quality of the film. It's not anything special. It's, was it worth the money to go and see it and have a bag of popcorn? Yes. Beyond that, yeah.
Yeah. The book itself is so grim. It sucks in like, not in like a poorly written way. It's just like, it sucks to live in that world. And the Arnold adaptation is one of the worst adaptations of all time. It's so loose and so like, let's just take this general concept and make an Arnold movie out of it. So I was interested to see what Edgar Wright would do with it, but we shall see.
We also did see Good Fortune.
Oh yeah, I did put that on over the weekend, I suppose. And that one, somebody said in the Discord earlier this week that it was very one note. And I don't know if I can really improve on that kind of review. I think it's a movie with a great premise in search of a larger idea. And it has some stuff that resonates with me and kind of my political persuasions and how the system has kind of been rigged against a particular group of people. But I just don't know if the ending or any of the major character development really paid off for me. And frankly, Keanu Reeves is cast in this because he's a big star, but I don't really understand the character. Like, that could have been just about anybody doing that character, and it wouldn't have made much of a difference. So,
no, I think there was a reason why he was put in that, because he's got this reputation as being this very magnanimous guy who's, people are down and out. He's trying to help them. And that's the character he was playing in the film, is one of these guys who's reaching out and trying to do more than what he should. So to that extent, I understand the casting. The biggest problem I have is that it kind of came up to the edge of saying something political, but never did. It just kind of, we kind of give you the gist, but that's the way it is. And have fun and get a couple of chuckles and, okay.
Keanu Reeves was also cast because he's got the shroud of Bill and Ted still hanging over him as kind of the lovable doofus. And that's what that part called for. So, okay, fine. I'll acquiesce on the casting. Like, I'm not displeased when Keanu Reeves shows up in a movie, but he could have been used so much better in this.
True.
So, otherwise, and from earlier in the episode, we didn't need an update on your James Bond rankings because you still haven't gotten to that, but you still have a few weeks before we get to all the rest of that. But otherwise, I think that's a good spot to stop it for this week. Thank you for listening. A boy's best friend is his mother. Next week, for our 289th episode, we welcome back Clarissa Beckstead of the I've Seen That One podcast to revisit the horror classic Psycho from 1960, which celebrated its 65th anniversary earlier this year. Directed by Alfred Hitchcock, written by Joseph Stefano, cinematography by John L. Russell, music by Bernard Herrmann, editing by George Tomasini, starring Anthony Perkins, Vera Miles, Martin Balsam, and Janet Leigh. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you.
That's REELGOOD.
Please like, follow, rate, and review, or whatever on whichever platform you have so that more can join in our fun. You can also email the show at RonnieDuncanStudios.com or at GreatestAllTimeMoviePodcast@gmail.com, or find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, TikTok, or Blue Sky at the handle @GModePodcast. The Greatest Movie of All Time is a production of Ronnie Duncan Studios. Our show is mixed, edited, and written by Thomas Duncan. Our music is thanks to Purple Planet Music. Our distributor is Captivate FM. Our technical provider is Riverside FM.